The purpose of this video is to build a bridge of understanding rather than a wall of segregation. Racism is bad. Police brutality is bad. Specifically, this video will address police fatal encounters and race. Are black people at higher risk at being unjustly killed by police? People continue to debate if police officers have an implicit bias against black people.
Secretary Clinton, last week you said we've got to do everything possible to improve policing, to go right at implicit bias. Do you believe that police are implicitly biased against black people?
Why is this a debate?
Black people dying at the hands of police, a common tragedy in America that now sparks protests
If I can't breathe, you can't breathe.
and raises questions about how police do and should interact with black citizens.
Why is there so much disagreement on race and police brutality data? Numbers do not lie, right?
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this, there is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense. None. Even
You'd have to be more specific about what data and what nonsense you're talking about.
that law enforcement officers treat black males different than white males in policing in these urban centers.
There is data that supports
There is not data.
On one side, you have people saying that racist police brutality is a myth, and on the other side, people say that racist police brutality is not a myth.
Authority, they were kind of losers, and now they want to have the ability to lord it over people, you know? The police department cannot be revenge for high school.
At different times, each side will either defend their position by asking their opponent to provide data, or they will attack their opponent by providing their own data.
I think you could probably find evidence that, in general, cops are more willing to shoot if the perpetrator is black
What's your data
than white.
What's your basis for saying that?
In either case, each side believes the data to prove them correct.
Virtually all Americans who go to prison for violent crimes are men. Virtually none are women. Does that mean that the system is unequal with regard to men and women, or does it mean that men are committing more crimes than women in terms of violent crimes? Wouldn't you want to know that before you declare the system innately inequitable, innately systemically discriminatory against men? The answer is, of course you would. So if the question is, how many people are being shot by police? The second question should be, okay, and how many people committed crimes?
We have the unconscious bias, and it is proven over and over again. And no, it is not just because, the blacks are prone to criminality. No, you're targeting blacks more, and it's proven out by the data. But you don't want to see the data, you don't want to see the truth, because that's inconvenient for you.
But what do the data really say? This video is not designed to give you an opinion or even draw conclusions. In this video, I will recreate the most cited statistics from the data, which will allow you to understand how these statistics are being calculated, no matter what side of the debate you believe you are on. It is up to you to interpret and draw conclusions from them. Again, I will not be sharing my opinions. Many individuals and news media cite data and statistics from mappingpoliceviolence.org. Perhaps you have heard of it. Their statistics are consistent with other published papers, which you can read more about on the Police Use of Deadly Force in the United States Wikipedia page under Racial Patterns. The data we will use to recreate the statistics come from mappingpoliceviolence.org. They provide a downloadable version of their data, so if you want to download it for personal use, you can. That is what we will be doing here. It should be noted that all statistics and research based on data are always at mercy of the data.
It's mostly shootings, more than 400 every year that we've been looking at, but we know that the FBI's data are very incomplete, so it's the lowball number. For example, the entire state of Florida is missing from their database, and it's reflecting only homicides that the police determine are justified. So there's a whole set of things that aren't reported.
If the data are largely inaccurate, then the statistics may not reflect reality. According to mappingpoliceviolence.org, The data mostly come from 3 sources. This information has been meticulously sourced from the 3 largest, most comprehensive, and impartial crowdsourced databases on police killings in the country: FatalEncounters.org, the U.S. Police Shootings Database, and KilledByPolice.net. We've also done extensive original research to further improve the quality and completeness of the data, searching social media, obituaries, criminal record databases, police reports, and other sources to identify the race of 90% of all the victims in the database. The data is in an Excel file. Here's what it looks like. They even provide the victims' names. We will begin recreating a statistic that is disagreed on. Hopefully, the calculations will shed some light as to why that is the case. The first statistic we will recreate is found on the main page under the section "Black people are more likely to be killed by police." In particular, we will recreate the statistic that black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. This is based on police killings between 2013 and 2019. I will import this data using the Python programming language, here in a Jupyter notebook. Near the bottom of the data, they list the totals for white people killed by police and black people killed by police between 2013 and 2019. To calculate this, they take the percentage of black people killed by police and divide it by the percentage of white people killed by police. This is based on population data that is also found in the Excel sheet. This particular statistic comes from the general population of the United States as recorded in the census. So we take 1949 deaths divided by the black population, quantity divided by 3,385 deaths divided by the white population. When we type those numbers out, we get about 2.7, which is actually what the original author got as well. The 3 is just rounding that 2.7 to the nearest whole number. Based on the population of the United States, black people are 2.69 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. We can also compare this number based on the population of people who have committed crimes. This calculation uses the population of arrests. This population data is based on official FBI arrest reports. This gives us a different number. Based on the population of arrests, black people are 1.45 times more likely to be killed by the police than white people. We can also compare this number based on the population of people who have been arrested for violent crimes. That statistic also comes from the FBI. A violent crime is defined by the FBI. Violent crimes are offenses of murder and non-negligent manslaughter, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. Based on the population of violent crimes, black people are less likely to be killed by the police than white people. Which of these is the most correct? Should this number be compared to the general population, the population of people who were arrested, the population of people who committed violent crimes, or something else that we have not discussed here? Please comment which one of those you think is the most appropriate. And please remember to be respectful. The next statistic we will recreate is that black people are 1.3 times more likely to be unarmed compared to white people when killed by police. This comes from the same Excel file, just a different sheet. We will define those that are armed by anyone who was not unarmed, and we will define those that are unarmed by those that were called unarmed. Let's take a look at a quick graphic. This shows us the armed percentage by race. So roughly 80% of all people were armed in fatal police encounters. Let's look at this a little more closely. In this plot, the color blue is those that were armed, and the color orange are those that are unarmed. The whole bar represents the total number of people that are victims of police killing. Now let's look at the numbers themselves by race. You see, black people were armed 82% of the time. and white people were armed 86% of the time. If we take 86% divided by 82% of black people that were armed, we get that white people were 1.04 times more likely to be armed in fatal police encounters. But the statistic had to do with unarmed rates, so let's take a look at that. Here is the same plot as before, but in reverse. The orange is the number of unarmed victims, and the total line is the total number of victims. Let's look at the numbers. Black people were unarmed 17% of the time, and white people were unarmed 13% of the time. This isn't exactly the same, but very similar to what mappingpoliceviolence.org claims on their website. Let's take the percentage of unarmed black victims and divide it by the percentage of unarmed white victims. The number we get is 1.29. That is almost exactly the number that was demonstrated on the website. Black people are 1.3 times more likely to be unarmed in fatal police encounters. Maybe you are wondering if this is statistically significant. We can take the mean, standard deviation, and total count of black men that were armed and do the same thing for white men that were armed and see if there is a significant difference between these numbers. Meaning it is unlikely this difference is only due to chance. When we run this with equal variance or not, we get a low p-value, which indicates that this is a significant difference. Of course, we can do the same thing for the unarmed numbers by taking the mean, standard deviation, and count of both white and black unarmed victims. This is the inverse probability, so it has the same result. I hope you found this video helpful.